be looking at the div element, and that div element has some strengths, and it has it's not necessarily weaknesses. Actually, it's a lot more strengths, but you have to do certain things to get it to behave like a table in some cases. Okay, so let me first kind of show you a table right here at the bottom and kind of point out what a table has as its strength. Number one, tables are excellent for putting tabular data in there. Somebody's name, let's say person's name, their class, their average GPA, and so you'd have a person's name here. You'd have, let's say, their web design class, and then their GPA might be a 3.7. And so tabular data is best in a table. However, tables are one way that we've used in the past to structure information. We've structured emails, and we've used that table to kind of create things that have space, that have padding, and that have their defined edges. Well, a div does a lot of that same stuff. So if you look here at the code for a div, you'll notice that all you have to do is start with the word div, okay? And then you can add a class to it, but in reality, you can just have the div by itself, and it will contain stuff. You know, I took out the class of container, and we'll talk about classes in a second. But if you notice how little you need to create that single box, to do the same thing in a table, you would have to do this, where you start with the table, declaring the table, then you declare the table row, then you declare the table division. Finally, you put content in that table division, then you end the table division, which is inside the table row, which is inside the table. And so you see how much it takes to simply produce this one box. Whereas to produce this red box, all I have to do is take a div, end the div, and put content inside of it. To show you that, we've got this div, which has a class of box right here, and we end the div, and it's got the text inside. Do you see how little code is required to create this div? Same basic box structure as this is a table, with one opening line of code, one closing line of code, and content. All right? Now, of course, you guys are all noticing these classes that are on this. And you notice this section over here's got a lot of stuff in it. Let me tell you the first real strength of doing this class and styling this way. Number one is, if you notice the container, it just reaches over. It says, my class is container. I need to go find my style in my cascading style sheets. I need to find the container style. And then it gives this list of things. 80% width, margin is 0 on top and bottom, and it's auto left and right. So it takes that remaining 20% width and splits it on the left and the right. Okay? Then you've got a border that's 7 pixels thick. It is red and solid. You also notice that I've got a border radius, or this rounded corner, of 2 rem. All the text inside of this container is centered. Okay? So over here I've got class, div class on this one is box. And so it reaches over here to box, and it pulls these styles and begins styling it with a light blue background, a margin of 8 rem between the boxes, a padding inside the box of 1.2 rem, and that's 1.2 rem from the edge to the inside the inside content on the top and the bottom, also on the left and the right, but since it's centered, you won't, that would be kind of right here. So if this text was much longer, we will just simply paste, 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 paste. You'll notice that the content blows out. and it will only get so close to the edge. So there we go. Now if I decide, notice these two are class box. I can come over here and change light blue to light green, and it will change the background color, okay, of both of them. So the strength in using classes and CSS over here, you change it in one place and it changes it everywhere this is in the document. So if I were to replicate these over and over and over again, let's go on ahead and format this code. If I were to do that, now I have all of these are light green. If I change them back to light blue, BLUE, LUE, and now you notice they've changed all to light blue. If I were to increase the margin between them to 2, you'd notice the margin increases among all of them, okay? So by doing this CSS over here and referring to it in the class, you get to affect multiple things in one swoop. Here you notice I've got one element that has the class of button, and it was not affected by everything that is class box. But you can also style HTML elements by themselves. Every div in this document has a sans serif typeface with a 1.5 rem size. Every table division has a width of 100 pixels, and the font family sans serif. Its text is centered and has 1 rem of padding. Okay, so take a moment, and I want you to make your first div. Okay, I want you to put some content in the div and then end that div. Okay, and then I want you to come up with some kind of styling, and I want you to give that styling a class name that you refer to in your styling. And so let's say that you want that style to be, or that styling to be container. Then add the word container to the class. And remember, classes start with a period in the CSS box, but they do not have the period when you refer to it by a class name. Okay? And then you suddenly get this red container with the word content in the middle. Play around with some div type coding and bring me a couple of divs that are showing me you are starting to understand. So your assignment is bring in a CodePen.io document with 3 to 5 divs and have them styled with classes and HTML element styling. Okay? So if you can bring that in, that will be outstanding, and we can font, weight, bold. We can then review your div usage and have you play around with it. In a future exercise, we are going to build a table and understand how it works, and then we're going to rebuild that exact same table appearance with divs, even with rows and columns. And we'll talk about how rows and columns can be built with divs, and then we will still discuss again how tables are sometimes the better option. All right, I'll see you in the next video.